a very long journey for me. And if you've seen me on shows, you know my story about always having been a seeker. And I was brought up in the church, Catholic church, and none of it felt right to me. And for instance, I still have strong memories of being, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 years old, of laying on the grass in the summer and looking up in the sky and just feeling so homesick. And I didn't know why. I had 4 brothers, 2 sisters, a mom and a dad, a Catholic community, and a neighborhood full of kids. And I was one of, 7 kids, and we had everything, there was no reason for me to be homesick. And I didn't know why. So I always felt kind of lonely. I know now why, because I miss home. I miss being from where I came, with the divine or angels, whatever you want to call it. I miss them so much. I still do. So I have a feeling of so much love. And not like you can get on earth. There truly is one mind and one heart here on this planet, and also what I call home, heaven, God, divinity, angels. That's why I connect with them, because I can feel it. I know that there truly is one heart, the heart of God, one mind, the mind of God. And in pure unity consciousness, we are all that. I felt that on that planet. Everybody's thoughts and actions is toward the one goal. It's for the good of the planet, the health of the planet, the health of the people. And it's like they all truly think the same thoughts, and there's no judgment and there's no conflict. It's really the essence of us. That feeling of love and unity and one heart, one mind is really only in a revelation of who we really are. That's our higher self is that. Our divine self is those feelings, is that no judgment, the place of neutrality, the place of love, the one heart, the one mind, the wanting goodness for all. And this is what, the spiritual path has led me to all of these years, because, I had that feeling when I was little, but, my mom used to say, I don't know how you get through your life without Saint so-and-so. And it's like, it doesn't resonate with me, but I had Catholicism pretty much shoved down my throat. During the 40 days of Lent before Easter, the way that my mom liked to celebrate it, because Lent was supposed to be suffering, you give up chocolate or you give up something that you love, you give that up during Lent. So we all had to pick what we wanted to give up. It was usually dessert or something. But we also had to go into the dining room that had linoleum floors with a china cabinet with statues of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, and candles and stuff. And that was my mom's altar. And so we had to go in the dining room, all 7 of us kids, and turn the chair around so we're kneeling in front of it with the seat of it facing us, and pray the rosary every single night for 40 days. This is how I was brought up. So none of this resonated with me, but what it did teach me was the devotional life. That I'm not alone, that there is a God, that there are angels, that there are saints, that there are beings in higher places that are here to help me. I could pray to Saint Anthony to find something that was lost, that kind of stuff. So I was trained in that searching for God, that wanting and knowing that there was something outside of myself that was supporting me and loving me. Even though I didn't grasp all of it or want all of it for myself. So in my 20s and 30s, I went to different churches. I was out of the house and got married and had kids and investigated Lutheranism, baptism, and Baptists, and all the Foursquare Church, where they have the gifts of the Holy Spirit, or speaking in tongues and all this other stuff. I did all that. I explored it all. And I always told God, show me my truth. Where do I fit into this? And who am I in relation to you? And then I went through this whole thing of, if I really am truly a piece of God, I must be sacrilegious. I can't think that and still love God, or I can't think that and still get to heaven, because I was taught that any talk like this was sacrilegious and I'm being led by the devil and I'm going to go to hell. So I had to work through all that stuff. Really did. But then I learned about Jesus' salvation. And for many years, I was a born again Christian. Carried my Bible with me, went to Bible studies. I led Bible studies. I went to the Foursquare Church. I was baptized as an adult and a baby. So I always wanted more. I was just had this drive to connect, to find my place in all of it, and not feel guilty about leaving the teachings of my childhood, to not feel condemned in making my own choices in what I wanted to believe. And raising my children, I was in my 30s then, raising my children. And we sent my first daughter to the Catholic school that, we had gone to church every Sunday. So because of my family, I also didn't want to completely separate, because my mom would tell me, once a Catholic, always a Catholic. It's like, I don't know about that. And she was so connected with Mother Mary and prayed the rosary and Saint Teresa, the little flower. Those were her peeps. And Padre Pio, who bore the wounds of Christ. He had open wounds in his hands and his feet and his side. She adored them. She venerated them and prayed to them and felt comfort in doing so. That wasn't my world, though. So fast forward again to when my daughter was in second grade, preparing for her Holy Communion and Holy Confession, because you have to have confession, then you get your first communion. She came home from school one day saying, "Hey, Mom, the pastor so-and-so of the Catholic Church came in to give some religious training and preparation for their first communion." And she said that the priest told her that God has this great big black book up in heaven, and anytime you sin, he writes that down. And so now your sin isn't really forgiven. It's in a black book, and he can go look it up and lay it on you anytime. I pulled her out of that school so fast, their heads were spinning. That wasn't my God, and I never went back. And my mom and my in-laws gave me so much crap. And then I had my son, because I had the girls first, and they went into public schools, and then I had my son, and I didn't get him baptized. And my in-laws and my mom were like, "You're not baptizing your son? What if he dies? He's going to go to hell." It's like, not in my world, no. This is my child, and I'm going to raise him the way that I want to. So I went through so much of this opposition and oppression of things because I wanted to believe what I wanted to believe and do my own searching. So when I was this Christian who carried around her Bible and woke up and fell asleep every night reading the Bible, I read in there, Jesus said that the things that, you've heard me say this, the things that he did, we shall also do. And because I was really following him, I wanted to be born again and walk in his footsteps. I wanted to love people like he did. I wanted to do the miracles that he did. He was my guy. So when I read that and he said the things that he did, we shall also do, I said, okay, that's what I did to him. I said, okay, you said it. I believe it. I want it. So bring it, bring it, bring it, bring it. And then the harmonic convergence came along in the 1987, where this light started infiltrating the planet of the ascension. And people started wakening up to the truth of who they were spiritually. And I was part of that wave, you might say, of ascension. And in the early 90s, started thinking differently, allowing myself to think and feel differently and do my own exploration. And so I heard about Reiki. And it was this spiritual magazine that I was just picked up somewhere at a bookstore or something. And there was this whole article about Reiki. And it's like, I read about how you just kind of lay hands, you don't touch people, but you kind of transmit energy. And I said, I already do that. I do that with my kids. That's how they fall asleep every night. Oh, I did that with my husband. That's how he fell asleep when I was doing that. So now I knew, what was already coming through me naturally. And now I had a name for it. So all my seeking was a massive, huge part that brought me where I am today. I wanted it. Want. I desired it more than anything. I asked for it. And they said, you have not because you ask not. So I asked. I begged Jesus. It's like, come on. I want to do that. I want to find my answer. I want to feel the peace. I want to be one with God. I want to sit at the right hand of God. Whatever it is that's there for me, I want it, and I'm not finding it yet. So I kept searching and looking and wanting. And so I got attuned to my first and second Reiki attunements with a Reiki master who was very open, and she took me through past life regressions. And it's like, oh, now here's another thing. Can I believe in past lives? I wasn't taught that. So then I had to work myself through, am I turning my back on Jesus if I believe this? Because, of course, the Word of God doesn't talk about any of that stuff. So, again, I struggled with, Jesus didn't say that, but I know this is true for me. The Bible doesn't say that, but this is what I'm experiencing. So, again, I went, at one point, I stopped all of this and went back to the Christian church and led Bible studies because I had that struggle, and nobody was telling me it was okay. There was nobody telling me, Deb, you're not listening to the devil. You're being led by the Spirit of God that lives within you. And there's these ascended masters. So the very first client that I had for Reiki, I got my attunements. I was so proud. I was so happy. And I printed these little business cards and I put them in this bookstore that was local, and I was getting calls. People would come to me. I had a room with French doors and played music and dimmed the lights, and they had my massage table there and did Reiki for people. And the very first client that came to me, I was just doing the Reiki thing. And you might have heard this story on shows, but all of a sudden I felt this impulse, this thing pushing out of my chest, and I heard husband. And I saw a capital T in my mind's eye. And I thought, okay, I don't know what that means, but I said, I'm not saying anything because you don't talk during Reiki. And this voice, this knowing kept pushing through my chest. Like if I didn't say it, was just going to bust out on its own. So finally I said, okay. I said, I don't even know her. And I'm talking to her about her private life. I said, are you married? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, does your husband's name begin with a T? And she said, no. But she did tell me the story of 10, 15 years ago when she was married to Tom. And one night, and they loved each other dearly, but one night they had a big blowout fight. So he left in the car to cool down. And while he was out on that drive, he got killed. Car accident. So this was Tom coming through me, talking to her. And the words that he said to her was, honey, it's all okay. There's no need for forgiveness. I'm fine. I'm in a beautiful place. I love you. And she's bawling and I'm bawling my eyes out. It was so cathartic. But you see how, because I knew I could excavate these gifts. I knew that other people had them. I could have them too. I knew if Jesus said I could do that, I could. I just believed and wouldn't let go of it. It's like I got my teeth into this idea that there's more to life than going to church on Sunday and learning stuff that doesn't serve me or help me or my children. So I just had this inner knowing and this burning desire and this, I want it and I want it all. And then I started telling Jesus, okay, I want this, great, thanks for it, but take me to the next level, whatever that looks like for me. I was passionate. I still am. I still want more. I still want to do everything. I want the next level. I know I'm on the precipice of that right now too. But then I would go to every seminar I could to learn about what this ascension was. And it's like, I want to be an ascended master. And I know that in the Old Testament, it talks about Elijah, who had a vision, or somebody witnessed a chariot of light coming down and to Elijah, and he exploded, he disappeared, he ascended. And that's what ascension used to be, where there would be so much light inside you that your body would, there's a name for it, spontaneously combust. So that's what happened in the Old Testament. It's like, okay, I want to ascend. I don't know if I want a spontaneous combust or not, but I want to ascend, and I know that I can. And I went to these seminars, and I went to group healing circles, and one of the teachers, as we'd go around the room and say why we were there and a little bit about our spiritual walk so far. And I said, hi, I'm Deb Getz. I want to ascend. And she said to me, good luck with that. So there's somebody telling me I couldn't. But I knew differently. And then, so I went to all these seminars and group healings, and then I want to learn everything. So I took reflexology. I lived in Racine, Wisconsin then, and down in Chicago, there was a weekend workshop on reflexology. I thought, I just feel like going. And so I did. And I don't do reflexology, but I learned it. I knew that's where I learned that the meridians and the pieces and parts of the feet represent different organs and glands within the body, can also be used as a healing modality. So while I'm at that healing retreat that weekend, somebody told me about Saint Germain and his books. The Saint Germain Foundation had, in Schaumburg, Illinois, actually, has all these books that were channeled and written by Guy Ballard back in the 20s, 30s. So I sought out those books, and I had like 5 of them, and I read morning and night. They're all highlighted and dog-eared, and it's like, oh, Saint Germain can do this. He's an alchemist. He does this magic, and I want that. He's an ascended master, so I want to be, again, there was another model for me. I wanted to be like Jesus. I wanted to be like Saint Germain. These books were filled with stories of, he had this elixir, because it was one of the books. It was like a story of some guy going hiking on Mount Shasta. One of these volumes was. So this guy's hiking in Mount Shasta, and he meets Saint Germain, kind of in an etheric body, and he gives him this elixir, this clear white crystalline light elixir, and he got to leave his body, and they went on this journey, and this high expansive journey. And it's like, I lived in those books for a very long time, and that helped raise my consciousness and feel more possibilities. But it also opened me up to, God, I started feeling this freedom, and I'm even I'm stronger knowing that I can do what they do, and I'm going to ascend now because I got one of these masters right here telling me how to do it. So there were many, many exercises in those books that Saint Germain taught this Guy Ballard about how to still the body and how to light it with the flame of love, and then expand that. And this is how we would clear our systems, clear our bodies with light and love. And then as I was doing this, Saint Germain would come, and he would be my teacher. Jesus would come and be my teacher as I was doing Reiki and getting messages for people. And why? Because I knew I could, and I wanted it more than anything else. I still do. Wanted, and asked. Like I said, I still do. So then somebody told me about Archangel Michael. So Jesus, Saint Germain, Archangel Michael were my 3 guys. This Archangel Michael knew how to cut cords. He knew how to, if you had emotional cords with people that you didn't want an attachment with them anymore, you could call him in with his big sword, and he'd come and slice it right away. So the alchemist, Saint Germain, to perform alchemy, Archangel Michael could help clear fields. Jesus was the master of love. What a better group to have for me learning to heal than these three who had exactly what I needed. So they became the ones that I called on continuously for years and years and years. And I started learning more about the angels. Because to me, when I was little, I knew I had a guardian angel and we had a prayer. We said every night, Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love permits me here. Ever this night be at my side to rule and guard, to love and guide. Amen. So I was taught to pray to the angels, and I knew that they were there. And I'm getting chills right now, even talking about them. These were my experiences of ascended beings of light, beings of love that were teaching me, showing me. And at that time, everything was still outside of me. Everything was still call them in because they'll do it for you and through you. Now we're being shown something more, that we are them, we are it. And if we weren't able to see them, know them, feel them, by seeing them, knowing them, and feeling them, or calling them in, they're saying that they are aspects of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to even know of them. We are them, they are us. The whole thing of unity of one heart, one mind. So those were my conduits. Those were like something I could plug into, putting my plug in the wall and, I'm connected now. So that's where I learned to create. When I started doing medical intuition, they gave me the calling in of the guide statement as a formality, not so much for me, but for the clients, because the words are together. We call in. So that gives the client a feeling of, oh, it's not just you, Deb, and you're the conduit. So yeah, let's bring them in. I want my higher self here. I want my angelic team here. But so for going back in time now again, yeah, I got connected with Saint Germain and Archangel Michael and Jesus. Then I met somebody in Boulder in the late 90s, because I moved out to Colorado then in 97. And I was dating a lot because I had just been divorced and dating a lot. And this one guy told me, he said, because I was always talk about Reiki and talk about everything I was learning. I was so excited. And he broke up with me. He says, I think you're too spiritual for me. And I really liked him. So I shut it down. I said, being the way that I am means that I can't have love. I'm going to be too much for people. So I was on this roller coaster of what I was doing. Oh, I'm there and I love what I'm doing, and I'm Saint Germain and all these people. And then somebody rejects me and I toned it down. And I kept it down for a long time. I became this award-winning interior designer. But yet I was designing homes intuitively. I wasn't designing by the book. I was still using my creative instincts and my intuition. So it wasn't completely shut down. You can't shut it down. Once you're there, you're there. Can't get rid of it. Can't shut down the light. So then I moved back to the Midwest in 2008 to be with my mom, because she was getting sick all the time and I knew that she was going to pass soon, which she did. But I started going back to the Christian church. But when I'm sitting in the church, the pastor's up there, or the minister is telling his story. It was not Catholic, of course. It was teaching Bible studies and stuff. The minister would be up there telling the gospel, reading the gospel, and then telling the whole story. What do you call it? Whatever it is, the message of the day that they're giving. And so he was talking about the road to Damascus and the man who helped somebody out, the Good Samaritan. He's telling that whole story. And I'm sitting there with my girlfriends, because my kids were grown and on their own now, and I was divorced, so I went to church with my girlfriends. And so he's telling the story about coming down the hill, down into Damascus, and and telling the whole story. And then the innkeeper helped him out and gave him money and stuff like that. And when it was all done, it's like, you guys, did you get this part? Did you hear this? Did you understand what they're really saying? I was getting a whole different expanded story of his Christian take on the road to the Good Samaritan story. And I told them what I was getting from that story. And they said, how did you do that? It's like, I just was seeing something totally different. And it was from, to me, a higher perspective. Well, that road down really represented the road to hell. It was going down. And the innkeeper who gave him money was actually God, or, so I had all of these different insights than what we were being taught that day. And then and it started happening all the time. And finally I said, I can't do this. I can't be here. I'm not getting fed. I could teach, I was a little arrogant maybe at the time. I said, I could teach this a lot differently than he is. And so I stopped going to church again. And I hooked up with a shaman. And he really cleared me a lot energetically. And so we had this relationship, me being cleared and healing and learning from him for about 9 months. Well, towards the end, right in the middle of that, I think he was out of town, and I just felt this impulse to pray for him. The words I actually heard were intercede, and I knew from being a Christian that intercession was prayer. So I put down my book I was reading, and I said, okay, I pray for his safe return, because he went to California. I was in Chicago, and I prayed for their safety, whatever. And then all of a sudden, I was shown 3 vertebrae in the middle of his back, where I just saw them in my mind's eye. And there was a bulging disc there. And I didn't know anything about what it was like to be a medical intuitive. So I thought, I guess I don't know what I was thinking. I just did it spontaneously, just started thinking, okay, I'll just put everything back into place. And it's then that the golden angel appeared over in the corner. It's 10-foot pure gold angel slowly came over to me, and I felt her as she descended down into my body. So she fully embodied me, and together we finished fixing the shaman's spine, which is completely healthy today. Then I had to learn to trust it. So I called my healer friend in New York and said, I told her what happened. And I said, do you think I'm a medical intuitive? I said, I kind of want that. She laughed at me. She goes, of course you're a medical intuitive. And so I think I told this on shows too, I started inviting my friends over. And hey, if you've got backaches, come on over and let me practice. Let me see if this is real, that it can work for more than just one person. And they were getting better. So then I started doing shows. I switched from doing home and garden shows as an interior designer, switched to doing body, mind, spirit expos, where I could get a booth and do mini healing sessions. And I had my booth there, and I got booked all day, every day, because I had this little sign-up sheet. There weren't a lot of medical intuitives around. And that's how I started to gain my confidence. But always, always knowing that I had these that were inspiring me, that were showing me the next high frequency transmissions to take me to the next step. The blood purification is a galactic technique, because I'm connected to the higher frequencies with these. To me, I always ask for the miraculous. It's like, allow me, give me the tools to create miracles to help people heal, to get better, help me heal. I've used all of these on my own, because, they say the teacher needs to learn what they're teaching. I had a lot of my own emotional and physical healing to work through. And so, that was 2014, 15, 16. Like I said, I started doing shows, and I had a girlfriend out, because I moved back to Colorado then in 2016 till this year. And I would do these shows. I would grow my mailing list. People would come. I was still seeing people in my house then. I didn't do a lot of remote stuff. So 90% of my business was people coming to my house, to a healing space that I had. And people were getting better. And I was charging. I built the website. And I was talking to my girlfriend, Shelly, one day. I said, I'm doing all this stuff, and people are getting better, but there's got to be a way for more people to know what I'm doing. She goes, I said, I need to be on John's show, because we would watch BTO. I said, I need to be on John's show. I said, I really want that. Again, wanted and asked. I said, okay, you guys, I want to be on John's show. Bring it. So my girlfriend Shelly said, I have John's address. I'm going to email him. She emails John Burgos, hey, you got to meet this girl, Deb Getz. She's a healer. So he went to my website and looked and wrote back to Shelly saying, does she have are you her agent? Like, agent? Oh my gosh, if you only knew. So, they had a little bit of conversation. He visited my website. He thought I looked good, but it wasn't until a whole year later that I get an email from him in 2018 saying, hey, I have this email from your friend Shelly from last year, and it was in the bottom of my inbox. You want to meet up? You want to be interviewed? Can you do a session for me? And we'll see about getting you on the show. So that was October of 2018. So I was on his show on February 9th, 2019. And then the morning after, the recording was on Vimeo or something. So I copied the link to that and I sent it to 5 other shows. I sent it to Lorraine Gailey, Quantum Conversations. I sent it over to Darius with You Wealth Revolution. Sent it to 5 shows. Within a year or so, they all called me, most of them. I think 4 of them called me and I was on their show too. And that's how I got to where I am today. But the bottom line of all of this was I wanted my heart to open. I wanted to have the heart of Christ consciousness. I'm not talking Jesus. I'm talking about the consciousness of love. And my masters that I've been talking about were the ones who showed me the way, who brought it to me when I was asking. I knew that the golden angel was a reflection of me, a piece, an aspect of me from the other side of the veil with these miraculous powers, with this, I don't know if miraculous powers, but something changed in me. My heart opened, and it's the compassion within my heart that allows me to do the work that I do. And it couldn't have happened any other way than through some of the trauma that I've been through and some of the desiring and wanting Jesus as my teacher. And you see where I'm coming from? See how this was all here? I knew about it. I wanted it for me. And I asked and things would come and I would just keep putting one foot in front of the other until now. Last year, they said, okay, start teaching what you do. And that's where this program came from. Being connected, wanting it, wanting that love, because I feel it when I talk about it. I feel it all the time, unless I'm upset about something, right? The thing is to get to living from that heart space that is just, I can feel my heart fluttering and flourishing sometimes just with this love. Just of this completion of, there's nothing more to want. There's nothing more to do. There's nothing more, just be here and observe life rather than trying to manipulate it, change it, or be so emotionally attached to it. I like living up here. I like everything high. I like to fly in airplanes. I like to hot air balloon. I like to parasail. Anything that gets me up off the earth, I want to ascend physically, emotionally, energetically. This is where I get fulfilled. This is why I'm here. To bring this energy. And as we ascend, the most important thing, really the only reason any of us is here is to anchor the vibration of love, to anchor the consciousness of love on the planet, period. I don't care if you're the president of the United States, the president of the world, or who you are, or what you're the greatest healer that ever walked this earth, or if you're quietly praying behind the scenes. The bottom line is to anchor the vibration of love on the planet. That's why we're here. That's ascension. And I can only do it being expanded and connected as a conduit of that love, of home, where I remember being a piece of that light before I came down here. See? That's how I did it. Such passion that was born in me to do this, to want it. And the willingness to at least try to let go of my stories. I still am human. Sometimes I still like to tell my stories that keep me small. It's not why I'm here, though, to stay small. Because the ego can fight against this a lot. If I let go of my stories, who am I going to be? I don't know. It's the fear of the unknown. I have not met my unmet self yet, is what the ego likes to say. But what I just talked to you about was I have met it. And I like it much better than this, than the ego and her stories. So this is my choice. I get to choose hell or heaven. That's the blessing of being on earth, is we get to choose heaven or hell. And I choose heaven. And this is how I stay there. This is how I got there. So we have that ability to bring heaven to earth. Everything's consciousness anywhere. Anyway, it's not something we're going to get to later. If our life truly is lived in our consciousness, then we can have heaven on earth right now. We can choose by our feelings, by our attachments, by our relationships, our choices to love, our setting the ego aside and being here, because there aren't two of us inside. We have that. When we talk about the ego, who is this that's talking about the ego? We know there's two of us, maybe more. We have that higher self, that wisdom here. And then we have the ego and its stories, but which is going to be our reality? I want to choose every day for this reality, not that one. Those are just stories. That's how I started, and that's how I got to where I am. And this is the love I try to teach all the time. And as far as how quantum acupuncture came through, well, you know how mediumship came through in my very first Reiki session. I didn't ask for it. I didn't know what a medium was. I didn't study it. I didn't want it. I mean, I want it, but it's not something I was seeking after. I didn't even know what a medium was. I just was Catholic. You don't talk about that stuff. So it just popped in, probably because I was just open and wanted everything. And I put one foot in front of the other and just welcomed every experience, knowing that because I was so connected, that these were my guys, that there was no chance of any devil or anything else coming in and giving me untrue things, right? Our family telling us that we're hearing from the devil. And it's like, no chance of that. And they said, well, how do you know? Because I know. I feel it. I know it. I am it. I am the light. I've been connected with it long enough to know what something opposing it feels like. So that's how mediumship came in. Quantum acupuncture. I was working with a gal who was very familiar with traditional Chinese medicine. She'd studied acupuncture in the past. She was a regular. I mean, we met twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. This was last year, 2 years ago. And so one day I'm just, doing some energy manipulation with her. And all of a sudden, I usually feel my guides over here in kind of a hazy cloud, like a forest almost. And out of this forest came this little Chinese man. And I knew he was an acupuncturist and an herbalist. I could telepathically knew that. And so I said, this little Chinese guy is here and he wants to do acupuncture. Is that okay with you? And she said, sure. So he opens his little black bag and I see these needles and he's putting them everywhere. And it's like, you doing okay? And she said, yeah. It's like, okay. And then he created this elixir. And I saw him pulling herbs out of a cubby. And then you know, this elixir that I was telling you about that Saint Germain had, I think is that same type of elixir that this Chinese man was pulling, this alchemical elixir. He was pouring that into this tincture, this infusion of herbs that we had made. And then I just put it into their body because that's what I saw him doing. And so during that whole time, I wanted to ask him his name or what he was doing. It's like, what are you putting the needle there for? Why is it going here? What is this doing? And she said, he's not going to tell you. I said, no, he's not. He's just working really fast. And I said, why? And she said, well, that's the way the Chinese are. They just work really quickly and you don't have to know, just let me do it. It's like, okay. So then I said, well, I want to ask him his name. So I asked him his name while he was doing all this work, and I'm seeing these crazy letters like Z's, T's, O, you know, I couldn't make sense of it. So I said, I can't get his name. She goes, well, ask him what his English equivalent of his name is. And he said, James. So we just called him Master James for a couple of days. And then I thought, well, I really want to know his name. So I went up to my bed and I did like this little meditation, and I just I called in his energy that I had felt during that session. I said, what's your name? Can you show it to me? And he said, well, first of all, you have to know that you are me. When you lived in the Ming Dynasty, you were me. You did this work. So I said, oh, that's interesting. So what's your name? And I just saw like written across the sky, you know, in the cartoons, you see things written across the sky. And it was SOHWANGTSU. And he was very clear. He said, Wang, that you see right there, isn't pronounced Wang, it's Wang. He's very specific. My name is Sil Wang Tzu. So I thought, well, that's very interesting. So I wanted to like get some confirmation that it was really him that I was hearing from. So I did a little Google search on the name Wang. And I found this little 7-minute video by this man whose name was Wang. And he explained how it's W-A-N-G, but it's pronounced Wang. It's like, oh, okay, I was really hearing from him. I got it. So then I found a picture on the internet that looked as close as possible to what I saw him as, and now he's on my website. That's Master Sil Wang Tzu. So you see how these things just pop in? I didn't know I was going to be doing energetic acupuncture. I didn't know that we would be doing blood purifications. When people need them, because I'm just with an open heart and open mind, wanting to bring forth the best in every session in the calling and the guide statement, we're asking for the more pertinent and accurate information and tools to bring complete and miraculous and spontaneous healing to their body, mind, and spirit. So this is what I get because I asked for it. So the person where the blood purification cube came in, they needed it. I used to do blood transfusions where I actually would energetically place my client in a recliner and hook them up to receiving somebody else's blood. Well, then a couple of years ago, the Galactics came in with Metatron's cube, the 8-inch cube, and they showed me how to hook it up and what it was doing, what the discs were inside. And they said, now you do blood purifications for these people who need it. And that popped in, I don't know, like I said, maybe 2.5 years ago, because somebody needed it. They had like a parasitic invasion and like a bacterial type of stuff going on for a long time. So that's how that came about. It came from the client's need. I didn't invent this. I didn't make it up. They happen when I want the best outcome for the client. And I'm expecting more. You know, just like galactic chiropractic came in when I saw the shaman's vertebrae in his spine. And then as I kept doing that, calling my friends over, you know, one of my friends, I said, well, so-and-so's been here, so-and-so's been here. And I've been doing this with their spines and their whole skeletal system. And she said, you got to call that galactic chiropractic. So that's where that came from. But these came through doing the work. And that's why I thought it'd be wonderful to teach others to do this work and get you guys practicing and get you used to doing these sessions so you can receive your own techniques. Because I know yet they're in you. You've done this work in other lifetimes, you do them in other dimensions, and that stuff is ready to come forth and out of you. And that's why practice was so important. So that you can get your own. And that's what I'm so excited about in teaching this class. And so whatever it is that you want it with your entire being. Want it with your whole heart. So that be passionate about it. Much like what you see in me. It's like, I want it with every cell of my body. I want it. And I'm not going to get my teeth out of it until I get it. And it's not like I do that with money or any, I don't. It's always this. And I know that when I do this, I'm on my path, I'm doing my mission, I'm answering my calling, I am guided. These guys are here helping, uplifting me, and everything else is just going to fall into place. I am supported. You know, I don't talk about what I want to make or any that stuff, just is a byproduct of this passion and fulfillment. Yeah, because we're not these meek, powerless beings that have to remain humble in our asking. I see me as them, as, you know, if I'm in the army of God, if you will, you know, the Jesus, Saint Germain, Archangel Michael, they're, you know, we're all doing this one thing, and that's anchoring love on the planet. And so, okay, if I'm going to do this work, I'm answering the calling, you know, I signed a contract and I came down here and I'm doing the work. So if you're maybe they're my managers, right? Say, okay, to do this work, I need this. So bring it. Yeah, I really do see myself as having been in an army of sorts and signed. I signed up in the Air Force or whatever we want to view it as. You know, I'm part of the army. I you know, signed the contract for this lifetime here, so it's my tour of duty. And then all the other stories and fears just kind of go away. It's like I don't think, well, who am I to do that? You know, none of that even comes into my mind because I know that I registered for this. This is my tour of duty. And they're like the commanding officers. Or my higher self's the commanding officer. And it's fun. It gets to be fun then.